tell you a little bit about what we're going to do here and the approach we're going to take. So thank you so much for being interested in serving as a director at Sasqueu. I mean, Sasqueu is such an important member of the community from a business point of view, but also from a philanthropic point of view, and a real leader in Salmon Arms, Trento, Sicamous, and Enderby. And the fact that you all have an interest in learning more, makes us feel really good. I think this might be having 5 potential. Is it 5? I've lost the view of you guys. I'm just going to count 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, 4. 4 potential candidates is quite a strong turnout for us. So my name is Barry Delaney. I'm the president and CEO of Sasqueu. I've been the leader of Sasqueu for the last 5 years. I'm just looking at my colleagues who have a Sasqueu background on their Zoom, and I feel like I need to talk to somebody to get that figured out so I too can do that. So before we get to the candidates, let's introduce the directors who and our corporate secretary. Just share your name, your role, how long you've been part of Sasqueu, and just a little bit of that. So let's start with Dave.
Oh, I'm happy to start. So my name's Dave Witt, and I'm in my 5th year as a director at Sasqueu, and I'm currently the chair of the nominating committee. My wife and I have lived in Salmon Arm since 1999, and I have 3 grown children, 2 in the Okanagan and 1 in Chilliwack. And I was an educator for 37 years and retired as superintendent of the North Okanagan Shuswap School District in 2013. I still do some consulting contracts in education and administration, and I'm trying to be more retired. But for me, the role of director has been enjoyable and rewarding. I've enjoyed being part of the success story that is Sasqueu, and very much enjoying the challenge of maintaining that success in a rapidly changing financial world.
Thank you, Dave. That was a really good introduction. We're looking for a little bit of family piece as well. So over to Joan and then Julia.
Well, welcome everyone. Wonderful to have you all join us tonight. I know some of you, so it's great to see familiar faces. And my name is, like I said, is Joan. And I am, when I'm not a Sasqueu board member, I'm the regional dean for Okanagan College. So in Shuswap and Revelstoke, that keeps me pretty busy. And I also have, I think the honor, I really enjoy working on a number of different community organizations throughout the Shuswap in terms of a variety of different economic development tables and those types of things, which again, this really keeps me closely connected to the community. I've been a director for Sasqueu now. I think this is my 5th year or my 4th year. It's my 2nd term with Sasqueu, and it's a fantastic board to be part of. I really enjoy the discussion. I enjoy the learning I get from the board, and we'll talk about that as we kind of go along tonight. I am quite new still to the Shuswap. I've just been here 5 years, have a lovely 2 daughters. Both graduated from high school. One has just started nursing in Vernon, so it's wonderful to have her back in home and one away. And my husband, Jeff, works here in real estate.
Great. All right. Thank you, Joan. That was very nice. Julia, let's hear from you.
Yes, so I'm Julia Payne. I joined Sasqueu just over 2 years ago, and I'm the corporate secretary. So I work quite closely with the board of directors and with our management team and Barry. I've got a husband and 2 girls. We've lived in the Okanagan since 2007. And my daughters are 10 and 5.
Thank you, Julia. I missed the family piece. So yeah, we moved here from, my wife and I moved here from Abbotsford, where we were there for 20 years. I moved here because of the CEO role that I was so happy to earn. We have 7 children, my wife and I. 3 of them live at home, and 4 have moved away. So we are still a long ways from being an empty nester. All right, let's, we're gonna have you guys introduce yourself, then we're gonna do a land acknowledgement, and then we'll get into our agenda where you can learn more about Sasqueu. So I'm looking at 4 faces, and I'll pick Ken, then Marty, then Chris, and then June.
Okay. I'm Ken Rogers. I live in the North Shuswap with my wife, Gail. We retired out here full-time in 2016, although we've owned a property since 2004. It was my reaction to having moved from, with our whole family, to Calgary from having lived in the Lower Mainland for all of my life. And having got out to Calgary in '99, I realized I needed water, I need mountains, I needed British Columbia. So we bought a recreational property here in 2004, about 4 years after moving out to Calgary. And the first chance we got when I retired, we moved back. So we're delighted to live out here. We have 2 children, both live in Calgary, both are married, and we've got 4 grandchildren. So it keeps us scooting back and forth between Shuswap Lake and Calgary on a regular basis, and we'll be heading out shortly to go back there for Christmas. So in terms of activities, I do sit on one board, which is Shuswap Economic Development Society, and I also sit on the advisory board for Area F parks. So those are 2 activities which keep me in touch with what's going on in the Shuswap area, and obviously very enriching for my experience, hence the interest in getting involved with Sasqueu. Just as a side note, my wife, Gail, she worked for 20 years with Van City, so we're active credit union members back in the days when we lived in Vancouver. So big supporters of the credit union movement.
Yeah, thank you, Ken. Nice to hear. Where on the North Shuswap are you?
Magda Bay.
Oh, that's a beautiful spot. And what were you doing before you retired?
Before I retired, I was an accountant. I'm a chartered accountant, retired. So I've done many things over my years, but for the immediate 5 years prior to retirement, I was consulting into the oil and gas industry. Had various other roles throughout my life, some of them non-financial, and so quite a varied, and some might even say checkered background. So it's been a fun career.
Okay. All right, Ken, thank you. Over to Marty.
Well, hello, my name is Marty Gibbons. I graduated from Salmon Arm Senior High, call it SAS back then, in 1993. So I spent the vast majority of my life in Salmon Arm. Born and raised, well, in White Lake mainly is where I live now. So what brought me here tonight is I'm a school trustee for Area C and F. So I sit on a number of boards, and I have, I believe, about 6 professional designations, but specifically what interests me here tonight, talk about family. I do have my beautiful wife of 25 years and our 22-year-old daughter living in Calgary, and our 20-year-old son living in Fort Mac, driving a truck as big as a house. So we are empty nesters at the ripe old age of 46. So, but yeah, so the family side. But one thing that really brought me here today, I do sit as a school trustee. So interesting, Dave, there's always, everyone's connected in Salmon Arm. So there's always a connection. And one of our trustees, Amanda Krebs, is a prominent instructor at the college. So it's like, we're all connected. Welcome to Salmon Arm, everyone. But what drew me here today was one of my professional designations is I'm a Canadian risk manager. I am a corporate director of Pacific Blue Cross. I also sit on a large multi-employer pension plan, and I do a lot of other benefit work as well. As a Canadian risk manager and a director of Pacific Blue Cross, I chair the board risk committee, and I'm reasonably new to risk. I think most people are after the financial crisis. I think a lot of people are new to risk, but I was very interested in sort of the emphasis that was put on risk management, and I thought perhaps I might have some expertise or a role there. I'm also very proud to be a Métis citizen with Métis and Cree ancestry. And certainly, yeah, that's Marty in a nutshell.
That's great. No, that's pretty interesting, Marty. And what's your day job?
I work in labor relations for the United Steelworkers. That's the majority of my work. But yeah, so.
Okay, thank you so much. Yeah, glad to have you around the table, the virtual table. We're going to go to Chris and then June. You're muted, Chris.
Am I there now? No. Here we go. I was in mute.
You're either. We had you. Now you're muted again. There.
Right.
You're good. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm Chris Caldwell. I'm a dentist in Salmon Arm. We moved here in 2018, but we became members of the Sasqueu family in 2015 when we bought the house that we renovated prior to moving over here. I spent a good part of my early life, about 22 years in the military. Not as a dentist. I chased Russian submarines in my 20s and into my early 30s. And then I switched over to being a dentist, staying in the military. Served on a number of different groups and boards over the years. And I'm looking to get forward to being involved with the Sasqueu if it happens. I have 2 daughters, none of which have graced me with any grandchildren. One of them lives in Whitehorse. What a beautiful place to see. If you've never been there, go. And the other one is in the process of moving from Hamilton to Kelowna, as her partner has picked up a job there with another credit union. I don't know if that's good, bad, or ugly, but
No, it's all good. It's all good. We're all co-op people.
no,
Yeah.
I understand. But one of them is starting to go national. You may know that more than anybody else, Barry, but
Yeah, I know exactly. I think I know who you're talking about. Yeah.
yeah, and he's been brought in as a VP for them. Anyways, that's what I got. I'm enjoying life here in Salmon Arm. It's a wonderful place to be. My wife and I are enjoying life together. She married me after me asking her for 37 years, and she finally gave in, so I outlasted her. And here we be. Thank you.
That's great, Chris. I want to explore the 37-year thing, but we have time. We don't have time. So
This story is way too long.
oh yeah. A glass of wine story. Okay. All right, June. Let's hear about June.
Okay, let's hear about June. I've been a member of Sasqueu for 52 years, so I like to say all my life, but nobody believes me on that one. I've got 2 grown children, a son and a daughter, both living in Kelowna, and my son has gifted me with 2 granddaughters, so I'm a grandma. I'm newly retired. I just retired in June, so I'm still finding my rhythm of retirement here. I spent actually 9 years working at Sasqueu many years ago, 20 years as a small business lender through Community Futures, and another 10 years as executive director for Shuswap Children's Association, which is where I just retired from. I have quite a few years of experience on the credit union board. I spent 30 years on the Sasqueu board. I was actually on the hiring committee for Barrie. So I think we made a good choice there. I don't know what else you want to know from me. I'm just exploring at this point, not sure what I want to do.
Yeah, no, that's good, June. I wasn't sure if you were going to distance yourself from the CEO hiring process or embrace the process. So that's always good. All right. So thank you, everybody. We're going to get into, we have a full agenda. We have lots of information to share. We put this together based on previous years of what candidates have asked. So we're trying to prep you with all your information. We have lots to share. Dave Witt is the chair of the committee, the nominations committee. Joan is a member of that committee. We'll just do a short acknowledgement of the land, and then it's going to be over to Dave and Joan to begin sharing information. And it's not wait to the end, right, Dave? It's as you have a question, please just, we want to have a conversation. We don't want to have a download of information. So we begin by acknowledging that we are speaking to you today from the unceded traditional territory of the Sasqueu First Nation. While we meet today on a virtual platform, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge the importance of the land, which we each call home. We do this to reaffirm our commitment and responsibility in improving relationships between nations and to improve our own understanding of local Indigenous peoples and their cultures. All right, thank you. Over to Dave.
Great, thank you, Barry. And again, welcome everyone. We'll begin with just a little practical piece on the Zoom platform here. If you, at the bottom of your screen, if you click on the participants icon, it should flash up a little list of all of us. And that would then allow you under reactions to raise your hand at any time during the presentation if you wish for whoever's speaking to clarify or you wish to offer a question at that point. And we'll also have opportunity for questions at the end of our presentation. So start off with the roles and responsibilities. I'll take the lead on that. So first and foremost, the role of director is to represent the interests of Sasqueu members and to ensure that we're a profitable and secure keeper of our members' finances. Directors don't get involved in operations, but we do set strategic direction and we monitor the results of the goals and objectives set out in our strategic plan. We've got a very serious responsibility to ensure that Sasqueu meets the very many legal requirements established to maintain the security of Canadian financial institutions. We develop and approve policy, and we're charged with being ambassadors of the cooperative principles within our communities. The role is significant, but I know it's one that every member of the board accepts willingly and proudly. To fulfill those responsibilities, it's expected that directors attend all meetings and prepare to contribute by asking questions and offering opinions. There's generally about 10 board meetings per year. They're usually held on the last Tuesday evening of each month and last about 3 hours. Management provides us with an agenda package 1 week in advance, and the expectation is that we've carefully reviewed the package prior to the meeting and come prepared with to discuss and to ask questions of the leadership team. Currently, our meetings are being held using Teams or Zoom, but after the pandemic is dealt with, we're hoping we can safely resume meetings in Salmon Arm. We have, to allow flexibility to directors who might be out of town on business or facing a long drive in a snowstorm. We've invested in the ability for that person to join us virtually once we do have face-to-face meetings. All directors are expected to attend the strategic planning session held over 2 to 3 days. And this year, the planning session will be May 26th to 28th. And we very much hope we can participate in that session in person this year. If not, we'll hold it virtually once again. Directors can also be assigned to 2 or 3 committees, and you can see the committees on the screen there. I can tell you more about each of them, but they are in the nomination package. There's a description of them, so I won't go through each one individually. Committee meetings are usually held quarterly, except for the nominating committee, which has all of our meetings tightly packed in a space of a couple of months. They usually are about 2 hours in length, and they're preset on a day of the week that is mutually convenient to all committee members. Thank goodness there's an abundance of support to assist directors in the learning process, and I'll address that specifically a little later on in the program. This also takes time. And time's always a question that people ask. How much time does it take? So in your first year, you can expect quite a learning curve. And in my case, it was I always called it the learning cliff. I thought I knew quite a bit about the finances as part of my university background, but it still required a lot of learning in that first year of being a director. In terms of actual time, some months can take 20 to 25 hours. And then a couple of other months have required 0 hours. On average, I would say about 15 hours per month. That lessens as you gain experience. So I can speak from my own experience. It's become much easier to work my way through the long agenda packages. Those hours don't include May, which is typically the month of our strategic planning session, which I mentioned earlier. So yeah, the role of directors has a significant time commitment, but the membership is supportive of some remuneration in recognition thereof. Board members are currently paid a stipend of $350 for every meeting attended, plus mileage. Per diem of the same amount is paid for attendance for out-of-town meetings or conferences and training programs. Travel expenses are reimbursed as per board policy. Over the course of the year, that works out to about $10,000 in gross earnings. The remuneration is a nice recognition of the role you play, but the greater satisfaction comes from serving the membership and the community. I've never regretted my decision to run and to serve. And that's my segue to the next slide over to Joan. In terms of her experience.
Dave, I thought we would, when you're listing off the hours of commitment, I thought we agreed we would round down the number of hours of commitment, then be forthright as you were. Yeah, it is a big commitment. Yeah.
Yes.
So I have the pleasure of talking a little bit about the benefit of being a director at Sasqueu. And when I heard each of you do your presentations, I realized that we have quite a group of folks who have extensive board experience. So I'm not too sure how much convincing I need to do to such an accomplished group. For sure, being a board of director, I mentioned a little bit about my background, being the college dean here in the community. I was looking for an opportunity to make a difference and learn about the community, and the Sasqueu board provided an exceptional opportunity for both. So as you know from your other experiences, it's a great opportunity to make a real difference in the community, an opportunity to give back from those great strengths that you have with your different roles, and play an active role in the success of Sasqueu. And I stress active because it certainly is a robust opportunity. And it makes that time commitment that Dave talked about really worth it. And you can kind of support those initiatives that really resonate with you. That variety of committees you saw on the list, there's lots of different opportunities for you to contribute as a director. And I really appreciate that for one. I mentioned that I've been on a lot of boards, and I've found Sasqueu board to be a fantastic learning experience for me as a professional. It really provided me an opportunity to see other leadership styles at play, look at other leadership questions that are being answered, risk analogies that are being made, policies that are being developed. And I actually really benefit personally from the learning I've done on the board in terms of my professional work. So it's a great opportunity to see the business at work, and you learn a lot of great skills. The other fantastic opportunity for Sasqueu, again, all of you being on different boards, it has a really great professional development program. So really good educational opportunities in terms of what it means to be a board of director. Dave mentioned the cliff. You know, maybe I'll think more like a water slide instead of a cliff, because that professional development really helps you quickly learn the lingo and those types of things, which are quite unique, of course, to the credit union world for those of us who come from a different background. So great educational opportunity. I found it also a fantastic opportunity to establish and build the network within the community. So I met fantastic people, and you meet the people kind of directly and indirectly. You get a pulse of the communities that you work in, and you really enrich both your personal and professional life from that great team that you get to work with at the Sasqueu board. And also the last bit too that I thought I would mention in terms of a benefit that Dave mentioned is there is some remuneration as well. So that's helpful as well for board members as you kind of look forward. So just a fantastic board. I have the privilege of being on lots of different boards, but I really do enjoy the Sasqueu board for it's really in learning experience and the professional opportunities that you get to be as your director.
Thanks,
And that's
Joan.
it for me, Dave.
Thank you, Joan. So if we could have the next slide up. All the new directors go through an orientation process. Yes, it's like learning cliff or a water slide, but there's a lot of help available. And the board chair will arrange for you to meet the executive leadership team and have a tour of the facilities and a review of the current matters being addressed by the board. And we'll help you become familiar with the expectation, procedures, and the like. You'll have a meeting with the Vice President of Finance and Credit to review current financial statements and an explanation of some of the thousands of acronyms that you'll encounter. Our corporate secretary, Julia Payne, who is with us, keeps us organized and will assist you in all things practical and will set you up with the appropriate communication channels. She'll also enroll you in a 6-module training session with the Credit Union Development Association, an excellent online Get Your Feet Wet program that brings meaning to many items on the board agenda. After the 6 modules, they're called the Foundations of Governance, there are other courses specific to committee work that are available to you as time permits. You'll note in the nomination package that there are specific professional development requirements over the course of your first and second terms. I've personally completed a number of these courses, a combination of in-person and online, and I can vouch for their usefulness and for their engagement. They've been tremendous supports in working with the credit union. Joan or Barry, have I missed anything in terms of supports? Okay, let's go on to the next slide then. So I won't read the slide in front of you there, but we've reviewed the role, and much of what we've presented is in the nomination package, including the dates you see on the screen. If being a director is of interest to you, I'd advise starting the documents as soon as possible. It is a bit arduous of an application process, but it's required of us by our regulators. If you're still assessing the work-life balance or other issues, you might consider applying and buying a few extra weeks to think about it at least. You can still withdraw by February 1st if you decide that it's just not for you at this time. Should you submit your nomination documents, Director Kelly Bennett and I will schedule a 45-minute interview with you at a mutually convenient time during the week of January 10th. And unless things change drastically on the pandemic scene, we really hope to do that in person at the downtown Sasqueu branch. And to tell you more about that endorsement process, I'm going to hand that back to you, Joan.
Thanks, Dave. So Dave has referred to our nomination package, which is a great, I found it such a handy tool when I was applying. So on page 5 and 7, page 7 talks a lot about our attributes and competencies that we're looking for at the board level. And so in that process that Dave's talking about, we look at those pieces in terms of endorsement. So the endorsement process, Sasqueu really recognizes the benefit of having a board that is diverse in composition in gender, ethnicity, geographic area, age, skills. And so we've added an endorsement process over the years. I think it's somewhat newer for Sasqueu. We found it, and past directors have said it's a very valuable experience to go through. So please don't be intimidated by it by any means. It's a great opportunity for us to learn a little bit more about you as a candidate as you come through. So the committee does review each nomination package. As Dave mentioned, he and Kelly would be also conducting interviews in that first part of January. And really what we look for are the qualities that you would bring to the board. And then those individuals are identified as endorsed that meet those qualifications, and any number of candidates can be endorsed, and all names of individuals that put their names forward will go forward for the election process, no matter if they're endorsed or not. So we do have a bit of an endorsement process, and again, the idea behind that is just to learn more about you and to see those competencies and attributes and match them for our board. So we're ensuring that diversity of skill set and background as we move forward to ensure the strength of the board and Sasqueu.
Thanks, Joan. And I think that just takes us to question period. I've been watching the screen for any hands raised, but maybe we've been talking too fast and too much for you to get a question in edgewise. So now's the opportunity. Has anything arisen from our presentation? So I see June with your hand up. Let's start with you.
I'm just wondering, after the interviews, will the candidates know whether they're endorsed or not before the withdrawal deadline?
Yes. I personally will call each candidate that we interview and let them know of our decision. Okay. And Marty, did I see your hand up as well? Yes.
Yeah, so I got a couple of questions. So the first one was, I was Salmon Credit Union member for many, many years, and when we moved to Kamloops for about 5 years, we joined Interior Credit, Interior Savings, and we haven't come back. So as of right now, I'm officially not a member, as we haven't come back to Salmon Arm since we moved here. We've been just virtually banking. Is there any time limit about how long someone has to have so when do I even qualify is my question.
Good question. It used to be that you needed to be a member for a year, but as of the last AGM, we changed that requirement, and very much specifically for situations like yourself, where you have been a credit union or co-op member, but just haven't had opportunity to sign up locally. But you would be still required to sign up, and I believe, Barry, is the deadline before the end of December?
I'll let our corporate secretary, who knows the rules by memory, answer that.
Thank you, Julia.
Yeah, so you would just need to be a member before you submit your nomination package. Part of your submission is including your account number. So as long as it's open before the deadline to submit, you would qualify.
And it used to, yeah, just the background, it used to be a year, but it limited us in terms of getting really great candidates, because often we would have something just exactly like this, Marty, where a great candidate would come to the information session, but they're not a member, and then I would just kick it out a year by the time they open a membership and all that. So we didn't want that to be a limitation of getting good directors.
Actually, did have a couple more questions, but I don't want to jump the queue.
No other hands up at the moment, so go ahead, Marty.
So first of my couple more questions. What is the term of directors? How long? 3
years. There's 9 members and 9 directors, and every 3 years, three positions come up for election. And we, as of about 4 years ago, I believe, Julia, you can correct me on this, but I think we also then made a stipulation, as per the regulator's recommendation, that 12 years or 4 consecutive terms be the longest a person can remain on the board before taking a break of I think a year or 2 before reapplying. Okay, and June, I see you with your hand up.
Do you know yet are any of the incumbents running again, and who are the incumbents?
So at this point, we have I won't identify who's who in terms of for their own privacy, but we have one director who is 90% committed to running again. We have another director who's 90% committed to not running. And we have a third director who will only run if we can again begin to have meetings in person, because this director is really not enjoying the virtual meetings. So I hope that's a little bit specific enough for you, June.
No, it wasn't. Is it not public knowledge on whose terms are expiring this?
Oh, I can tell you,
Okay.
certainly. Oh, sure. The terms that are expiring are Constance Liddell and Darlene Weinheimer's here. What's Darlene's last name?
Payne.
Darlene McBain and Frank. Oh, geez. Thanks.
Poppin or Popin?
Popine.
Yes.
Popin, yeah. I think he owned McDonald's at one point.
That's right.
Yeah. I had a follow-up if there's no one else.
Go ahead, Marty.
So this is in regard to a conflict of interest question. Does the credit union deal in life insurance or any benefits? Is the credit union a benefit provider? Other than, I know that you are for house, and I'm just trying to think conflict with Pacific Blue Cross. Would you be participating in any business lines that would be considered in conflict?
I can let Barry take that one on.
That's an interesting question. I would think no, Marty. We do sell life insurance. We have our financial planners, a couple of them are life licensed for things like seg funds, but we don't sell benefit packages to small employers or large employers that would be similar in any way to Pacific Blue Cross.
I know the head of risk for Van City sits on my risk committee, so I thought it might, there was probably be okay.
Yeah, no, they're very large, right? Pacific Blue Cross compared to us, and yeah, we play in a very different retail market.
I could add a little bit to that in terms of the conflict of interest piece. On the agenda of every meeting is an item of conflict of interest where we ask any member to declare a conflict for any item that would appear on that particular agenda. And then there's a quick discussion to decide whether it's a conflict or not. If it is, then the member is asked to absent themselves from the meeting for that particular item. And I see Ken with your hand up. I think Ken's screen might be frozen. Can you hear us, Ken? Oh, now you're muted. We can see you, but you're muted.
Of course I'm muted.
There we go.
Yeah, you've frozen 2 or 3 times, which is quite extraordinary. We've had over the COVID many Zoom calls. This is the first time that's happened, so I apologize if it's my end.
Carry on. Do you have a question?
Yeah, I do. I unfortunately missed some of that dialogue on the conflict of interest, but maybe we'll make group back on that if we have to. But what I was interested in is the foundational governance training program. What does that involve, and what is the curriculum? How does it work in practice?
Joan's nodding and smiling. You've gone through it more
Well,
recently.
we all go through it. So
Yeah.
there's, so it's an accredited process. I'm just trying to think through CUTA, and it's funny, but names are escaping me in terms of who's the accrediting body there, Julia, for the CUTA course.
Credit Union Directors Association.
I know the exams are through Dalhousie.
That's what I thought, yeah.
And so the first 6 modules are online modules, and they've just completely revamped them. So instead of just watching a video, they're more of an interactive site, and you're clicking on different components of it. But there's a lot of reading material, a lot of links to different sites. And at the end of each module, there's a little kind of test of your knowledge that you've gained. Once you complete all 6 modules, there's a bit of an exam. And then once you've completed that, then there is a foundations course, which is usually broken up into 4 courses. Right now they're virtual, so they're for lunchtime, roughly 1-hour sessions. They're normally an in-person program as well. And then once you have that, you have your level A, and that's what's required in your first year.
But there's also level B and C to it as well, Ken. And they're great opportunities. So, there's specific areas after the foundational level and, credit market risk, those different types of pieces, as well as a variety of different other options that you can take on a regular basis. And like Julia said, with COVID, a lot of them have gone online, but there's also opportunities to take some of them in person. And so Dave and I have probably done both, right, Dave, as we've gone along. And I really find them enjoyable, all of them. And then there's a final accreditation after your second term that is expected for you as a board member as you work through. So really, really pertinent to your work on the board.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And the in-person sessions, where are they held?
All over. I've been to sessions in Kelowna, Revelstoke, and Vancouver for in-person.
But they also have them in Calgary.
Mm-hmm. Oh, there you go.
So, depending on which way you're flowing. So they have them
I'm
in
still a
variety of
Vancouver boy
locations.
at heart.
Oh, there you go.
And I recently took the 6 modules myself this summer, and the in-person ones. And on the 6 modules, they're what you would expect. There's a little bit of, this is what governance means, and this is what management does, and this is where they overlap, and this is where they don't overlap, as an example of one module. And then another module that's maybe more technical would be what we call asset liability management. And that is, how a financial institution makes money and controls risk. We accept deposits, and then we lend those deposits out for mortgages. And then what are the controls around that? Mm-hmm. And then the in-person ones tend to be case studies. So different credit unions that are disguised and are fictional, but they have this problem. Like, does the board need to deal with this problem in a planning session environment, or does the board need to just give this to management because it's operational? And there's just discussions around that. It's really quite good, actually. So that's a flavor of it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and fascinating stuff. I mean, that's kind of my wheelhouse, I guess. But what is the time commitment in the first year for those courses?
Okay, Dave, round down and then answer the question.
Well, hearing Julia speak about the revamping of those courses, I don't know that I can give a realistic answer. When I took the 6 courses, they were all online, and they were all about, I'd say, 3 to 4 hours each. But I could do them at my, the time that worked for me, and so I did them over a period of 6 weeks, and so it was very manageable. In addition, we also have to do a short 1 hour course on money laundering and privacy concerns each year, but those are very quick, and and especially in subsequent years when you redo them, they're not a lot new, but required by the regulators that we're up to speed on the latest.
Okay, good, thanks.
Marty, sure.
Does Sasqueu have a chief risk officer, and has Sasqueu implemented enterprise risk management?
Okay, wow, that's a great question. We do not have a chief risk officer. Our regulator wants us to put one in place, and we say we're too small for that, and they say you're big enough that you need that. So we're in discussions, but we do have an enterprise risk management framework in place for sure. We present to the board quarterly all sorts of risk tolerances that are what I call traffic lights. We have risk appetites in the 6 key areas that are of concern for a financial institution. And that there's good discussion throughout the year on risk elements, but we don't have a position designated as a chief risk officer.
Well, that falls on you.
Yes, I was going to say, actually, they do. It's called the CEO.
Fair enough. Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
I quite extensively, I don't know who you're working with at BCFSA, but I quite extensively regularly get interrogated by them as the risk chair for Pacific Blue Cross. So I actually have developed the opinion is what's important to the regulator is important to me. So
yes, well,
BCFSA approach.
Yeah, well, we have the
regardless
same
of how
view.
stupid it is, if it's important to them, it's important to me.
Yeah, we have the same view. And, we just crossed like a couple of months ago, financial institutions are measured by their balance sheet. That's how we categorize different credit unions across the country. And we just crossed the $1 billion in asset mark. And we had some of the management staff were like doing a high five, and I was cautioning them that, well, it's actually going to be a lot more work, because as soon as you cross that threshold, the expectations from a regulator goes way up, because now they're holding us to the same standard as Van City, even though we're a Sasqueu and just crossed it. So I completely agree with you, Marty, that what's of interest to the regulator is fascinating to us. Yeah.
Very prudent.
So Marty, your hand's still up. Do you have more?
No, I do not. I'll take it
Okay.
down. I've dominated enough of the questions. I'm going to take my hand down.
Great question.
Thank you for the answers.
And June, has much changed since you were in the chairs?
Well, I'd be interested to see what a board meeting looks like now. I have a feeling that's probably changed. Is there senior managers at the meetings, forward-looking versus historical?
Yes.
I think you'd be happy with the changes. Yeah, it's very strategic. It's more forward-looking, as you say. We spent a lot of time on the core issues and try to dispense with the routine things through a consent agenda. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just curious, what's your assessment right now? What are the attributes you'd like to add to the board?
Well, Joan and Barry, you can help me out, but I know for sure technology is a big piece. Technology management, cybercrime continues to haunt everyone, and so that's a big piece for us. We've also really had a strong desire to have increased diversity on the board. Trying to think of some of the other pieces. Governance is always a piece that we're happy to add knowledge to. Joan, can you remember any other items from our needs assessment?
I think you covered the big ones. I mean, we're certainly always looking for someone with that strong regulatory background, that understanding of that financial risk, those types of credit, those kinds of pieces as well, Ken. But yeah, I think you're right, Dave. Those are kind of the big ones for us in terms of the board. We've enjoyed quite a balance so far of that skill set. So, but those would be some things that we're looking forward to maintaining for sure.
Thanks.
And I think the other thing that we're looking for is, strategic management during times where it's so uncertain, really quite unique times from a variety of perspectives. So that change management experience, those kinds of concepts would be important.
If I may just follow on there, you mentioned strategic planning. There is the multi-day session that occurs in May.
Yes.
can you walk me through that process? How does that work in practice?
So the first day is, because it's always the first meeting for any new board members. So there's an orientation piece, which is very valuable, not just for the new members, but also for our existing members. It's a refresher course on where the credit union's at in all aspects of finance and management. Then we head into, sometimes we'll bring in an outside facilitator to lead us through a session, especially if it's time for a new strategic plan. It's often helpful to have an external facilitator come in and lead us through an exercise where we decide what direction we want to go. In our existing strategic plan, of course, it's been dampened by the pandemic, but this year I'm sure we'll spend a considerable amount of time just assessing, where we've come in our achieving the strategic plan that we had set, and having management lead us through the numbers game of where we're at in achieving some of those goals and deciding what the priorities will be for the coming year. And then the other really important part for, I can speak personally, but I think for all board members is often it's the informal discussion that happens over a cup of coffee or a glass of wine in the evening. And just, I hate to use the word team building, but that's what it is, where you get to know each other and get to know each other's strengths and challenges and work together as a team, because it is a huge responsibility, and in a world where FICOMs and cyber currency and cyber crime, all those pieces are coming into play. It feels like, man, we've got to be on top of things, and so those things will come up in the strategic planning session as well. Our management team is very good at presenting the agenda to us well in advance and having us be a big part of putting it together. And so the 2.5 days goes by in a blink, and it's both interesting and engaging and help and useful.
Thank you.
I'm not seeing any other hands. So thank you all so much for joining us. Joan or Barry, any closing thoughts?
Joan?
Well, I hope we've all just enticed you to put your names forward, because it's a fantastic organization.
And Julia, key dates, do you want to just one more time cement the dates?
Yeah, so the key next date is your nomination package is due by 4 p.m. on January 7th. And then those interviews the week of the 10th to the 14th of January would kind of be the next key dates.
And certainly if a question comes to mind tomorrow and I forgot, I should have asked that. My contact information is on the Sasqueu website. It's on the nomination package. Certainly feel free to contact me or any of the board members, or Barry or Julia. And thanks again for joining us, and we hope you'll consider running.
Okay, thanks everybody. We promised we would take no more than an hour, so there you go. All right, thank you so much. Have a good evening.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you.
Nice job, Dave.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Ken, just before I sign out, did you want any more, or I think you're frozen? Okay.
Let's see.
Good night, Julia.
Good night.